Today on Sports Central, we'll be over our next team projection of this offseason, and it's going to be over the Minnesota Golden Gophers, a team that certainly has got a ton of potential going into 2021, and that's what we're going over here today. We're going to be going over a few players that Minnesota will be losing, who are going to be returning, and also looking at their schedule for the first time this offseason, starting out with the previous 6 games for Minnesota. If you look at this team down the stretch, I mean, they're 3-4 overall, and this team overall, I'd say was a disappointment. I thought Minnesota, honestly, could have been the top team in the Big Ten West Division, possibly even the second. I was thinking they were going to be a top 2 team in the Big Ten West, but Tanner Morgan overall just did not have a very good season in comparison to his 2019 season at least. And this team in general was just on the wrong end for a lot of these close losses. I mean, they lost to Maryland by 1. I mean, that was a close game there to Maryland, and they were that close to winning that game. Same thing with that Wisconsin loss there. I mean, 17-20. This team had a lot of close losses last season. So, I mean, this team is really close. That's why I'm saying here. This team is really close, or was really close to being a 5-win team at least last season, especially with those Maryland and Wisconsin losses there. But they beat Illinois. 41-14 was the final score there. A good win there for Minnesota. They lost to Iowa. I'm not sure what happened in that game there. I mean, Iowa's a good team, but geez, 7-35, that's a pretty terrible loss. They beat Purdue 34-31. They also beat Nebraska on the road 24-17, so they got a couple of good wins there in the final weeks of the season. However, they did lose to Wisconsin 17-20. Certainly, that was a very winnable game. I mean, Wisconsin had very little momentum going into that matchup, so Minnesota certainly could have gotten a win, but in the end, they just lost to them on the road again. But if you look at the first 3 games for this team, they were 1-2. Last 4 games, they were 2-2. So this team did improve record-wise over the course of the season. If you look at your roster preview here, of course, you return your starting quarterback, Tanner Morgan. That's going to be a big return and a big influence on the season. It's certainly going to be Tanner Morgan. If Tanner Morgan plays well, I could easily see this team getting 8 to 10 wins next year. But if Tanner Morgan doesn't play as well, I mean, he's got a lot of responsibility on this team next season, I really do think. Like, if you look at Tanner Morgan in 2019, even in 2020, I mean, this player just did not live up to the expectations, especially, I mean, in 2019, this player, I mean, Tanner Morgan put up, I think, over 3,000 yards on the 2019 season, and he had an outstanding completion rate. But last season, he only put up 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and a 58% completion rate. So, I mean, if you don't really count 2020 and through there, this player definitely has got a ton of upside going to next season. And I think Tanner Morgan certainly, I mean, 2020 I think was just a bad year. Next year he's definitely going to be right back, I do think. I mean, if you look at this, rushing core in general, I mean, they got Muhammad Ibrahim back. That's going to be a huge return for Minnesota, and he's going to be a very early pick in the 2022 NFL draft. And if you look at him, put up 1,100 yards, 15 touchdowns last season, so he had a great year for the Gophers. Definitely, I'd say, was a top running back in the Big Ten for sure, and he's definitely going to be, I think, in that conversation again in 2021. If you look at the receiving core, they do lose their top receiver, Rashad Bateman. That's going to be a tough loss for Tanner Morgan. Last season, he put up nearly 500 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he is headed to the NFL draft. They returned their second receiver, Chris Ottman-Bell. He's probably going to be their top receiver next season, as he put up 430 yards and a touchdown last year. So not a bad season for Chris Ottman-Bell. You look at their third receiver, Daniel Jackson. He didn't have a lot of action last season, but he's certainly going to have a lot more going into 2021. Put up 167 yards on the season, so not a terrible year for Daniel Jackson, as he was the third receiver on the team. Once again, Tanner Morgan is going to have a huge influence on this team. If he plays well, this team will play well. If he doesn't play as well, I think we're going to see kind of a same result as this team had in 2020. But if you look at the defensive side, they do lose 2 in the secondary and 1 defensive lineman. So they only lose 3 starters next season, which really, I mean, most teams lose 4 to 5 starters on a defense on average. So this Minnesota team is just below that benchmark there, losing 3 overall in the defense next season. So that's not terrible at all. The secondary certainly is taking a couple hits there, but this team I certainly think will be right back to being, once again, good in the secondary. But they also lose 2 offensive linemen. Definitely something to note there for Tanner Morgan that could affect him as well. But overall, this team still is bringing back quite a bit of talent, so I think this team will be just fine making it to a bowl game next season. But how this team will be successful, once again, I mean, it's Tanner Morgan. Tanner Morgan definitely, I think, has got a huge responsibility on this team next season. I mean, we saw him in 2019. We saw how well he played in 2019. If he can play that same way or even better in 2021, this team will definitely be on their way to a really good season, I really do think. Chance of winning the Big Ten West, this Big Ten West division is going to be pretty tough next season. I mean, you got Wisconsin and Iowa. I think personally, it's either going to be Wisconsin or Iowa winning that Big Ten West division. Both those teams are just too good, and they're returning too much talent in order for me to count them out right now. So Minnesota will be in the conversation to possibly second or third in the Big Ten West. I do expect them to be kind of on the outside of that conversation. But I mean, if Tanner Morgan plays well, once again, we could easily see Minnesota as possibly even that top team in the Big Ten West. I mean, they were really close. They were one game away in 2019 to winning that Big Ten West division. So who knows? This team is certainly going to have their hands full going into next season with Wisconsin and Iowa. But if you look at their schedule here, you start the season on September 2nd against Ohio State. That's going to be a tough game to start off the year. These are the adjusted schedules, by the way. These were just released yesterday. Miami, Ohio, then you got on September 11th. That's going to be an easy game, I think, there. That's certainly going to be a guaranteed one. You got Colorado on the road. That should be an interesting matchup against the Buffaloes in Boulder. Colorado last season actually played pretty well. I'd say Colorado was one of the top teams in the Pac-12. I think they finished second in their division last year, and obviously Colorado didn't play a lot of games, but it was not a bad season for the Buffaloes, so that could come to be kind of a tough matchup there. Then you got Bowling Green at home on the 25th. I'm going to say that's also an easy win. Bowling Green was probably the worst team in the FBS last season. Like, them and UMass were terrible, but Purdue on the road, then you start off October with. You got Nebraska at home on the 16th, Maryland to follow that. Then you got Northwestern on the road to finish on October. In November, you got Illinois, Iowa, or Indiana, then Wisconsin. And that Wisconsin game is going to be very important. Same thing with the Iowa game. I mean, that month of November is going to be crucial for Minnesota. They definitely got to be playing their best football in that last month of action, because you play both Iowa and Wisconsin in the last 3 games of the regular season, which obviously I think Iowa and Wisconsin are going to be right there at the top of the Big Ten West. So if Minnesota's wanting to make a run, possibly to win that division, they got to probably beat both Iowa and Wisconsin. That Iowa game will be tough. It's on the road, and obviously if we're seeing a lot of fans in the stands, it's always a tough place to play. We've seen a lot of teams get upset there in the past. So that's going to be a tough game there in Kinnick Stadium, but I definitely think Minnesota's got a good chance to win that game. That being said, looking at the first half of your schedule, that Ohio State game is going to be brutal. Ohio State's still looking like a great team next season, but I'm not going to say it's a total loss yet. I think Minnesota does have potential to keep it close. I mean, Justin Fields is not going to be with Ohio State next season. They're going to have a lot of new players on this offensive side especially. So I think Minnesota does have potential to keep it close, at least at the start. But I'm going to keep it as a 20 to 80% game for now. Then you got Miami, Ohio. I'm going to say that's a guaranteed win. Miami, Ohio in general is just not a very good team. Colorado on the road, I'm not going to say it's a win quite yet. I'm going to say it's going to be a close one. I'd probably favor Minnesota right now, but Colorado could be a good team. Watch out for them. I mean, if the 2020 season was a 12-game season, I mean, Colorado would probably be an 8-win team. So that certainly could come to be a tough game. Bowling Green's going to be a win. Purdue's going to be a win. So you got 3 guaranteed wins there in the first 6 games. You got Nebraska then at home on the 16th. I'm going to say that's a close one as well. I certainly would probably favor Minnesota right now over Nebraska, but I'm still going to keep it as a close game there. So in the first half of your schedule, you definitely got 3 guaranteed wins. I'd probably say that they'll definitely have 4 at least. At least they'll have 4 by the 6th game of the season. As for the second half here, you got Maryland on the 23rd. I'm going to say that's a win. I definitely think Maryland next season isn't going to be... Well, actually, Maryland could be a good team. I think with having their quarterback, Talia Tagovailoa in there, that could be a bit of a tough game. But I'm actually giving Minnesota a guaranteed win here, mainly because it's at home. Then you got Northwestern on the road on the 30th. That's going to be a close one as well. I think Northwestern certainly... they're not going to be as good next season as they were this season, but I'm still going to say it's a close one. Illinois on the 6th of November, I'm going to say that's a win as well. So I'm giving you 5 guaranteed wins here on your schedule. You got Iowa then on the road, tough game. Indiana is also going to be a tough one. I think Indiana is going to be a really good team. Watch out for them. And then Wisconsin is also going to be a close game there. I think all 3 of those last games of the regular season are certainly going to be really tough. I think Minnesota personally, like if you look at the first say 9 games of the season, you got 5 guaranteed wins in through there, so you're going to be 5-4 at least heading into the last 3 games of the season, and I'd probably give you another 2 wins. This team will probably be, I'd say, 7-2 going into the final 3 games of the season. They'll probably be ranked pretty high. I think Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin will definitely determine how this team does in the postseason in general. So those last 3 games are certainly going to be extremely crucial for this team. But that being said, record projection is going to be 7-5, 2-9-3 for this team. I could honestly put up a 10-2 for Minnesota, especially if Tanner Morgan plays well. But that being said, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this game. Record projections, all of that. Let me know down in the comments. But then again, I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys all later.